Everybody, Janine here, and welcome back to another session of Tips from the Trenches. In our last session and today, our common theme is the word help. Last week we looked at how friends and family, neighbors, colleagues can learn how to offer their help to those caregivers in their lives. And today we're going to look at how caregivers can learn strategies on how to reach out for that much needed help and support. But before we look at the strategies, it's so important for us to acknowledge that caring for somebody living with dementia is hard work. No doubt about it, it's really hard work, and often it is where the caregiver ignores their own well-being in order to get the job done. If you're still somehow doubtful as to just how hard it is to care for somebody living with dementia, I'd encourage you to look at some of my past sessions where I shared some remarkable statistics, and one that comes to mind is that somebody that is caring for a person living with dementia will end up caregiving 1 to 5 years more than a person that is not caring for somebody with dementia. Another statistic was that people caring for dementia, those caregivers have a much higher hospitalization rate than those that are not caring for somebody with dementia. Okay, so have you ever had the opportunity to help someone you care about? So let's say, for example, a family member or a friend had a baby and you decided to make a meal for them. Now, I'm sure there is no doubt that they really appreciated that meal. But what I want us to focus on and think about is, how did that make you feel? So I've had that experience and I know it made me feel good. It made me feel like I was part of something important, and it made me feel useful. So caregivers, I want you to think that when you say no to those offers of help, you are often robbing those people in your lives of that important feeling that they experience of feeling good and feeling like they're being purposeful and part of something important. But before we get too hard on the caregivers in our lives and just feel that they're just being stubborn when they don't want to accept our help, I thought let's look at some of the common reasons why caregivers say no. So in my previous sessions, and we'll talk about this and remind people about this more often in the ones to come, I mentioned to you this: when you've met one person with dementia, you've met one person with dementia. And that is the same for the caregivers. When you've met one caregiver, you've met one caregiver. We are all so unique. So our personalities are unique, our family dynamics are unique. Just because Millie is quite comfortable to ask family and friends for help doesn't mean that Norma is going to be the same. And so it's really important to keep that in mind. But besides the differences in our personalities and the family dynamics, there are some other reasons why caregivers might say no initially to help. So the first one is that protective instinct and fear of strangers. So often caregivers don't trust others with their loved one, don't trust them to do a good enough job. Then there's that caregiver guilt. Unfortunately, this is a very common one where caregivers will feel that their position, so as possibly as the spouse or as the adult child, means that it's their responsibility and their responsibility alone to take care of all the person's needs. And along with this guilt, hand in hand, we see often where the caregiver feels that they don't want to be a bother to anybody else. And then a desire for privacy. Some people simply lead more private lives by default. And so they consider family happenings to be extremely personal and private. And then finally, there could be financial challenges. So let's take a look at some strategies caregivers can try out. As a caregiver, you're going to need both emotional and practical help along this dementia journey. What I'd like to encourage you to do is to start off by making a list of tasks you need to accomplish. So you want to look at which ones are easy enough to let somebody else pick up and do. You want to look at those that you want to hold on to. And then you want to look at those that you go, I have no idea how to do this, because maybe the person that you're caring for, they were the ones that always did that. And so you're going to make that list, and then what I'd like you to do is to go, well, who could help me with that list? How often do I want that specific thing done? And so let's take, for example, just to help you to get this into context, let's say mowing the lawn. So do you need help with this? Yes, you do. How often? Well, you've determined that you should mow the lawn weekly. Who could do this for you? Well, possibly John, your neighbor, who's offered on several occasions, or maybe your other neighbor's teenage son, Josh, who is always looking for odd jobs to do in the summer. So this is an example of practical help that you might need. So what about the emotional help? So maybe you feel you just wish you had someone to talk to. And so that's the emotional need that you have at the moment. Who could you ask? You could ask a really good friend. How would you like that to look? Well, you would love to go out for coffee and just be able to chat and share what's on your heart and vent. And how often would you like that to happen? Well, every second week would be good. So that's an example of an emotional need that you need help and support with. So what do we do with these lists? You can leave these lists somewhere where that's easily accessible. So on your fridge, maybe you keep one in your purse, keep one next to the phone, just so that when somebody calls and says, hey, I'd like to offer you some help, you have those lists right there, and you can say, well, actually, I'd love help with A, B, and C. You could take that list and you could email it to family and friends that keep offering and say, please tell me how I can help. And then next time there's a special event so that you would usually receive a gift for. So your birthday, Christmas, you could then let the people in your life know that instead of a gift, here's the list, and that you would really appreciate one or two of these items as being their gift from them to you. And so that's another way that you can get support. So I hope these ideas and these strategies are helpful. As always, I so appreciate you tuning in. Please do share and like these sessions. As always, I want to thank you for your attention, and I want to wish you peace. I want to wish you strength, and I want to wish you moments of joy.